Hi and welcome to the channel. Look, 2025 is going to be the year of the Parawing, and if you're thinking about getting into it, then this is a must watch. I'm going to give you my 5 top tips for learning how to Parawing. Please remember to like and subscribe. The channel really helps me grow, develop and make more content like this to help you out. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. So having the right equipment and going out in the right conditions can be the difference between having a great session and having an absolute nightmare. So let's look first of all at the board. Look, I've settled on a mid-length around my body weight in litres. So I'm 80 kilos, so around an 80 litre mid-length is perfect. Now the reason why it's really good is that it's the right length for efficiency, but it still gives me maneuverability and also control in the latter stages when I'm getting up and going. Now, obviously a traditional downwind board is going to be more efficient and it's definitely going to get you up on foil quicker, but it doesn't give you the performance and also the control that you need in the early stages. Now, I think when mid-lengths were all coming out, people were tending to go down like the 60 litre, the 45 litre, that kind of mark. Now, by accident, I actually went for a board that was a similar volume to my body weight, merely because I wanted a floater to get me past really dodgy sections where I launch normally. Now, this has ended up being a godsend for power winging because it means that I can float on the water, sort out the wing, and then still have the efficiency to get up and going. So for me, a mid-length is the way to go, but make sure the mid-length has enough volume to support you when you're getting up and going. Now, I'm not saying go out and buy a mid-length specifically for power winging. It'd be excellent if you already had one in that volume size. I'm just saying that's probably where you want to end up. Most people will start learning on their downwind board, or indeed if you've got a really big wing board, you can still use that as well. I would just recommend staying well clear. Something that sinks is going to be really difficult when you're learning. So for the 4, you want something that's easy to use, that's got good glide and it's got good pump. Something like the Armstrong MA 1180 or the 1080, they're really good foils. They're user-friendly. They're not the fastest foils, but at the beginning, you don't really need that. You then will end up being on a relatively large downwind foil. Now onto the weather. Look, in the early stages, the wind window is really small. You're talking somewhere between 15 and 20 knots. If you start going beyond that, you're going to make your life really difficult. Now, don't get me wrong, you can definitely do that down the line when your journey is a little bit further along, but at the start, really try and cherry pick those sessions. Now, I know for a fact that when your Parawing turns up, you're going to go out on the water and give it a go anyway. Now, by all means, go out and do that, have some fun, but in the back of your mind, know that what you're looking for is that 15 to 20. They're the conditions that you're after, and that's where you're going to see your progression develop the best. Okay, so top tip number 2 is all about how to enter and exit the water. And again, I got this wrong in the early stages. What I was doing was flying the Parawing and then walking out to the water, and then likewise flying the Parawing and coming off the water. Now, too many times I'd like to mention this went horribly wrong and it all ended up in a cat's cradle mess with board, Parawing, a bit of a garage sail on the beach. It was not pretty. So what I do now is I pack the Parawing away, tuck it under my jumper, and then I paddle out to where I need to go. And then likewise, when I'm coming into the beach, I'll either stop, pack it away, or if I'm gliding all the way in, then I'll just hold it in my hand, keep it nice and high, and try and keep it dry. That's the key to entry and exit. Okay, so top tip number 3 is all about deploying the Parawing, so getting it up in the air and flying. I've seen lots of videos online of people drifting it out, using the front lines to fly it up, and it should come up really nicely. Yeah, I think that does work in ideal conditions, but what I found the fastest and the best way of doing it is identifying the leading edge. On the Ensys Roger, that's really easy because it's colored. You just grab that, throw it up into the air whilst you're holding the handle, and then it just deploys straight away. And I do that in all winds now. Not only the light stuff, I tend to do it when it's windy as well. Okay, onto the all important pack away. And this is something that needs a bit of practice. So definitely do this on the beach before you go out onto the water. Okay, so the key to it is to always do the same thing so it becomes muscle memory. I begin by always have it being on the same tack, so riding regular as I go down. I hold the Parawing in my right hand, and then with my left hand, it then comes and meets the bottom of the bar. Now this is the point which I can then retract the lines. My left hand stays where it is and my right hand does the work. Now I want to point out that it's really important that you grab all the lines. If you miss just one line, the whole process can become a nightmare and it gets tangled up. So take your time to make sure that you're gathering all the lines with your left hand. And the way to do that is to rest it, as I said, at the bottom of the bar. Now the next stage is to get rid of the bar, and I just pop this under my left armpit. It keeps it really nice and tight and stops the lines from getting tangled. I'm then turning my hand so the top of the canopy is now facing the wind. And what this does is it blows all of the material over the top of my hand, which means I can then grab it all, release with my left hand, and then start the bundling process. It may seem insignificant, but it has a huge impact in terms of the Parawing not catching the wind and then redeploying again by accident. The next stage is relatively easy. It's a case of just scrunching it up, putting it all into one hand, and then taking the bar and then finally collecting that into the one hand as well. And then what I've settled on is really just keeping it in my hand. I very rarely pack it away now. Yes, it looks really cool to have both hands free, but what I've found, it's much easier just to hold it in one hand. You can redeploy it much quicker and there's less likely to get tangled. Like with everything, the key to it is to practice, practice, practice. So definitely do this on the beach lots so it becomes second nature, but also do it lots going downwind. Before you know it, you'll have this down pat. And then top tip number 5 is all about the redeploy. Now, when this goes right, it looks so slick, but if it goes wrong big style. Now, most people's reaction is just to throw it out in front of them. Now, this has two problems. The first one is that because you're going downwind, your resultant wind is pretty much zero. You may have a few knots, but because you're going downwind at the same pace as the wind sometimes, you'll find yourself running into that Parawing and it becoming a big mess. And the second problem is that you're just assuming there are no tangles and you've packed it away absolutely perfectly, which 9 times out of 10 isn't the case. There's normally 1 or 2 little twists in it. So if you just throw it out in front of you, it's going to catch the wind and then jolt off in a direction that you're not aware of. So what I do is make sure, once again, I'm on my regular stance. I take the bar into my right hand and I literally just drop the Parawing and let it dangle. I give it a couple of little tweaks with my right hand, and before you know it, it untwists itself, and then I slowly then start coming up into the wind. And as you do that, it will then fill with wind, engage, and then before you know it, you're up and riding again. Yes, it takes a little bit of practice because there's a bit of multitasking going on there, but if you get it right, it looks super slick. The key to it really is to take your time and make sure that you get rid of all of those twists before you start coming up into the wind. Well, there you have it, really short and sharp, my 5 top tips for learning to a Parawing in 2025. I hope you got something out of it. Like with always, please can you like and subscribe? Type away in the comments below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. All right, see you on the water again soon.